Hello, everybody. Happy New Year's. Welcome to this New Year's Day edition of A Peek Inside SEC Football. Allie Peek, TJ Pittinger. TJ, how was your New Year's? What did you and Kara do?
Sat around and watched football all day. Took Christmas stuff down, and
You already
oh
took your Christmas stuff down?
yeah, it was. It's. I think the first is a good time for that. I think the first is.
I think the first is a good day to do absolutely nothing but sit on your couch and watch football.
Yeah. Kara redecorated. I'll send you a picture of it. But Kara redecorated our whole mantle, and she put some new plants up there. So she
Isn't
wanted
it
to take a
supposed to be
garland.
bad luck to do like housework on New Year's Day? That's what I told
She
her.
actually did it last night
Hope
because we're
that's true.
watched and we don't do anything for New Year's Eve. So it was actually last night that she did it. And
Oh, see, we live in a fun neighborhood with fun neighborhood
no,
friends. So we were
our kids
setting
are
off
so little.
fireworks. Our kids were running
Yeah,
around.
I know. Like Lincoln needs to go to bed. The
Yeah.
kids need to go to bed. I wanted to watch the Ohio State game. So no, or not Ohio State, Penn State. So yeah, no, I just wanted to get done and
Yeah.
do the football stuff. So but it sounds like you guys had a good New Year's too.
We did. We did. We live in like the most fun neighborhood with lots of families with kids our same age. So like we were at somebody's house. We all had dinner. There was fireworks, lots of kid champagne and mommy and daddy champagne, and it was a good time. It was definitely a good time. Watch some football. I see. Now, is that what kind of beverage are you
Sweet
partaking
tea.
in over
It's
there?
actually
Oh,
a mix, sweet
okay.
tea and unsweet tea. It's real
Well,
exciting.
I'm going through the very last of the eggnog. Still,
Yeah, get after it. My
still
kids got introduced to eggnog
whatever.
this year, and I had significantly less than I've ever had in my life because they learned
They
how
love
good it
it.
was.
Yes.
And so yeah, next year I'll have to. I made a mistake this year by not buying enough,
Oh,
and
okay.
we do. Publix make this is not why anybody tuned in, so we'll shut up and go.
Yeah.
But Publix makes an eggnog ice cream.
Oh, it's in my fridge. I know
Did
freezer.
you? Okay, but they also make a cinnamon one that literally tastes like cinnamon toast crunch. It is. Kara got two
Okay.
today. They're
Well,
done.
I've
Like they're
not
not
heard
making any
that.
more. So you better run after we get
That's
off the
crazy.
air.
I have like 6 of their special edition
Yeah,
holiday ice creams, but none of them have cinnamon in it.
yeah. It literally is like a cinnamon toast crunch. The kids will love it. So
All right. Well, good to know. All right. Well, let's talk some football, which is why we're really here. Some interesting football has been played. Let's talk first about Texas and Arizona State. I think this is my favorite game that we've seen so far in the playoffs.
yeah, we didn't. Now I think you. I can't remember because we do a lot and we talk a lot and then live regular lives too. But did you pick Arizona State to cover?
I think I did.
I can't remember.
You go back and look. I think I picked Texas to win, but Arizona State to cover, but maybe that's wrong.
I
In my
can't remember either
revisionist
way.
mind, that's correct, but
I kind of remember you picking them to cover and me not, but it
yeah,
could have been flipped or we both could have picked Texas. I really don't remember. But like
we need to go back
I
and
certainly didn't expect this. When it
I
was
mean,
14 when it was 14-3 and they scored, Arizona State went down. I thought Arizona State should have gone for it on that first drive.
yeah.
And they ran a quarterback draw on 3rd and 5, straight up the middle against a top 5 defensive line in the country. I thought that was a terrible call, but I was like, okay, well, they just wanted a couple yards, so it would be 4th and short. So like, I'm kind of
Mhm.
okay with this.
Yeah.
And they kicked the field goal, which they missed, or which they made, so that's fine. But then Texas scores like in 2 plays, and then on a punt return, it's 14-3, and I think everyone in America thought,
It's over.
all right, let's get on to the Rose Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Let's get on to the actual good game. And the game we thought would be terrible today and the game we thought would be really good certainly reversed roles. But after Texas got up, they certainly, I think we thought like, okay, well, Texas kind of played with their food last week with Clemson. They let them come back a little bit. Like this is about to be the Texas we're going to see.
Yeah.
And Texas did it again. Like they let Arizona hang around way too much in this thing.
Yes.
And it almost bit them in the you-know-what.
I mean, but can we talk about Cam Scatterbo? I cannot. I, I mean, he is maybe the most exciting player to watch in college football. I just, Game Day did a couple pieces on him today that was interesting to see. And, and to be completely honest, I'm not paying that close attention, to Arizona State during the regular season. I'm just not. I knew Cam's name because, he was racking up the yardage all year long, but not somebody that I necessarily played intense, you know, scrutiny to throughout the course of the season. But damn, he is so good, so fun to watch. He is a little bit cocky, but I feel like he completely backs that up with his play. Texas was just struggling with him. It was a one-man show for the most part. And then, I mean, good God, the stats from the day are just absolutely insane. And how about when they had him throw, like, what was it? It was like a 43-yard pass, something absurd, and they score on it. He was so fun to watch.
Yeah, he had the biggest pass of the game. He had the biggest rush of the game. He had the biggest
They
reception of the
needed to
game.
trot him out there at field goal kicker.
Yeah.
That like probably would have been more successful
Or
for him.
defensive back or something, right? Like
Something.
he was, he could have been Travis Hunter on the other side. But no, he was.
Couldn't have
I
been
mean, he
worse
won
than
the
number 2
MVP.
for them.
He won
I
the
mean,
MVP in a losing effort.
yeah.
You know, like that's to me that's really impressive. Like we just don't see that much in sports at
Yeah.
all. Like it's happened in a couple of Super Bowls. Or one
Sure,
Super
it's
Bowl. I'm
just
sorry.
not the norm.
No, not at all. And he was, I mean, he kept them in it. And they
Yeah.
limited him in the first half. They did a really good job of keeping him down. You know, they outgained Texas by over 100. Like they outgained Texas pretty significantly. They outgained them by about 130 yards. It was 150 before overtime started.
Yeah.
And then Texas obviously had 50 yards in overtime because they scored twice. And then, ASU only had like 30, so it got a little bit closer. But they were outgaining it's hard to say they played better than Texas did, but it was
Because they
close.
lost, right?
If they could have finished a little bit better, they had a field goal blocked. They got stopped
When
on
you
fourth
take
down 3
talent
times.
into account there, Arizona State played above their, pay grade, so to speak, and Texas below it. But Cam's stats alone, I retweeted this today: 30 carries, 143 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 8 receptions for 99 receiving yards. Couldn't figure out a way to get him that last yard. 1-for-1 passing. It was a 42-yard pass and a TD.
And I
Those
think he
were
scored at least one
wild.
2-point conversion too. Just
Absolutely wild.
Yeah.
I mean, so fun to watch. And surely Arizona State as a whole, when you think about the turnaround just in the course of a year, is so incredibly impressive and kind of a testament to what can happen if you, in this NIL era that we're in, transfer portal era, how you can flip a roster, flip a team in 1 year. All those programs that tell you, you need 4 or 5 years. Maybe you don't.
Yeah. Are you seeing Texas do this back-to-back games and seeing who their opponent is, which we'll talk about here in a minute? Are you a
Sure.
little concerned for Texas? Like, I don't think their offense was good enough. Now, they won, but if you'd have told me, obviously the overtime stats count, but it's hard to count overtime stats
Sure.
they scored 17 points and you can't take away the punt return. So like Texas fans will get on, you can't if you take a play away, take away their trick play. Absolutely. I get that. But if you take away the punt return, if I'd have told you that Texas was only scoring 17 in this game when we previewed it on Sunday, you'd have probably said like Arizona State's got a pretty good chance to win. Like they only scored 17 points in regulation without that punt return. I didn't think their offense was nearly good enough. Now, when you are an SEC team, when you are a top 5 program in the country, when you're a top with 25 yards to go, I think you're going to score more often than not, right? So overtime, you have a little bit of an advantage. But I didn't think Texas offense was good enough, and they got to fix that because it wouldn't matter if they played Oregon, Ohio State, Notre Dame, like that. That's going to be a problem in the next round, in the next 2 rounds, if they don't start to get that cleaned up. Quinn didn't look great. People were asking, like, is Arch going to go in after the interception?
Yeah.
The interception was terrible. Like you're up by 8. What are you doing here? And so I don't know. I think Texas offense, they're rushing. They had like 50 yards rushing. They had like 300 against Clemson. I don't know. I was very unimpressed. And I'm not trying to take credit away from Arizona State's defense, but come on. I mean, it's Texas.
So with Texas, what I will say is this: I think good teams figure out a way to win, right? And Texas has done that. It's not pretty. It's definitely not always pretty. I don't think that and I think if their opponent had been tougher this year, or excuse me, this day, it could have not gone in their favor. But I do feel like Texas is battle tested, and I feel like good teams find ways to win, even if it's ugly. And I think there's a great chance that that's what we saw. I also just have questions about Texas's offensive play calling. This is something that I have kind of mentioned to you, a few weeks in a row here. I just think sometimes Texas is Texas's own worst enemy. Um, we all know I'm not a massive fan of head coaches being offensive coordinators, and I think that sometimes Texas is the perfect example of why that is. I I don't know, and yours was not great. He has had a roller coaster year. When he's good, he is the top echelon of college football. But he has had some off moments, and we saw that a little bit today.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. They found a way to win. And I think a lot of times when you're a more talented team, you do end up coming out on top, even
Yeah,
when a team like Arizona State, who we talked about was really hot to end the year,
yeah,
despite competition, they were still, the one thing about, who have they played, Arizona State's not like they won. The way they were winning was so impressive because they don't have a roster that's built like Texas, right? Like they weren't a roster that was built like Texas is
right,
beating Big 12 teams. They were
sure,
an above average, a good Big 12 team
sure,
that was beating the crap out of Big 12 teams, right? Like
yeah,
winning on the road against ranked teams and things like that. And so, yeah, there is a schedule argument that can be had. But when you
yeah,
look at, that same, I don't want to call it lower level, but that same like step down that you're looking at their schedule exists on Arizona State's roster. And so
mhm,
I think that,
right, which makes what they did today actually even more impressive.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, they're not. There's no way this should have been an overtime game. And shoot, in overtime, man, you talk about play calling. Man, I know that Kenny Dillingham and that staff have to be kicking themselves because on that 4th and 13, when they were getting pressure
Yes,
against Texas's front, and they were making Quinn uncomfortable, and they were stopping them for losses, and it's 4th and 13. Man, I don't know, man. Like I thought for all the crap we'll give Quinn, he
yeah,
checked out of whatever they were going to run on 4th and 13, and he called a max protect and he called a go route, and he said, "Look, there are 0 safeties back there. I'm gonna take a shot at the end zone." And to me, once they scored that, it was like, they're probably going to win this. Like that 4th and 13 to
yeah,
me was the difference. And I mean, yeah, you as a coach, you got to be second guessing every decision you make when you don't win, and even when you do win. But I think that if they had that to do over, I thought their defense was playing well enough, and you'd held them to 17 regulation points, right?
yeah,
I think at that point, you gotta, man, you gotta trust what's gotten you there. And they bring in the all out, bring in the cover 0, all out blitz, no safeties deep. The guy beat his, the wide receiver, it was a Golden maybe, beat his DB off the line. And it was just, as soon as he let the pass go, you said, well, that's a touchdown, right? Like that,
right,
he's behind him. That's it. And I just
right,
wonder if they had that to do over again, if they would have said, yeah, that's not what we're going to, we're going to just play. Cause it had worked like 3 straight plays and then the entire rest of the game outside of like that first drive. So I don't know. I thought that sucked. Like they were so close. And everybody just, maybe you're an SEC fan, you wanted to see the SEC do whatever. I don't know. In the heat of that moment, like, I don't know how you don't cheer for the underdog in that moment, like how
yeah,
you don't like say, all right, I want to see David beat Goliath. Like this is really cool. And so once it went to the double overtime, obviously they score on the first play. It's kind of over, but yeah, the game was phenomenal. And nobody expected to be that good, especially once it got to 14-3. You're like, this crap's over.
right.
That's when we started taking down Christmas decorations. Like, I got some time now. So,
Now you can relax. I do want to read a super chat that we just got from Christian. Gator Nation, we salute you, Allie, but don't let TJ here and all of this college football playoff talk distract you from the fact that Mike Norvell turned into a Kardashian over us planting our flag at Ron Zook Field. It's all love, TJ, though. Great new channel. We appreciate you, Christian. And listen, I will never let Norvell forget that he whined like a little girl after the flag.
next time you
Don't
next time you
worry.
see him, next time you
Next
talk
time
to
I
him,
see him, I'll
you
make
won't let
sure I
him
point it
you
out.
won't let him forget.
I'll rag TJ the entire off season. Don't worry. He will not. They will not live that down. Definitely not.
Yeah. No, yeah, I have no comment on that one.
Yeah.
We're in 2025. Let's leave the past in the past. But yeah, Texas becomes, how about this? This was interesting. Our buddy Jerry Hamilton pointed this out. Texas is the first team, this has nothing to do with the game, but that has won all 6 New Year's 6 bowl games. It's pretty
I
cool.
saw that. That is pretty interesting. I definitely nice little factoid. So when Jeopardy is asking in a few years, you'll know the answer because you
No,
watch this show. So there you go.
it was all that. All right, their opponent. Let's talk about Ohio State for a second.
Yes. Well, this was an interesting one. We thought going into this game this afternoon in the Rose Bowl, we had Oregon, Ohio State, the first time around, Oregon had won. This was, the Rose Bowl is so pretentious. I was so excited that they had to start on ESPN too, because I just, maybe that knocks them down a peg a little bit. Also, ESPN's in control of that. Why do you not just move kickoff by a few minutes? It's so stupid.
That's so annoying. And I feel like they've done that before when the playoff was just two teams and they were on the
Yeah.
same day. I feel like that's been done before. Maybe
I
I'm
feel like
crazy.
it's been done with college games when,
Yeah,
like,
I
just during
just
the regular season. It's so stupid that you're the only ones in control, and instead of adjusting, you
and
put them on a lesser channel. This is just, I don't know, it's stupid to me.
and the
Worried
first
about that
Jeremiah Smith
sunset in the third quarter.
touchdown, like you
Nobody
missed it.
saw.
If you were still watching overtime, which I had both games pulled up, but if you're still just watching one game or you don't have a computer or a phone in front of you that you're pulled it up on, like you missed the first touchdown. Like, I don't know, man. It's in overtime. Delay that thing by 10 minutes and roll. Like,
Listen, it's so silly. But we were kind of excited for this game. We talked a few days ago about the fact that it was kind of neat because it was, obviously Oregon is now in the Big Ten, but this is a traditional Pac-10 team that was playing a Big Ten opponent, or Pac-12 team, excuse me. Which is the traditional matchup in the Rose Bowl. There was a lot of pageantry involved with it being Oregon and Ohio State, and damn. Then kickoff happened.
yeah, I think last week when we saw them do this to Tennessee, it was easy to just say like, oh, well, Tennessee had some ups and downs. They weren't good in all their games. They
Right.
struggled against Georgia. They nearly lost to Florida. They lost to Arkansas. Like, this Tennessee team, yeah, we can excuse that, right?
Yeah.
Ohio State was just pissed off about the Michigan thing. And then Samson goes down. They had some other things going on with Tennessee too. But then for them to do this against Oregon, like the 41-21 final score is not even close
No.
to how much of a blowout this was. Like they completely took their
Yeah.
foot off the gas. I mean, it was over at halftime.
Oh,
I know they got the
absolutely.
8 right before, but at 34-8, this thing was still over. And
Eric had her kids in the backyard with like a bonfire going. And I was like, are you not going to watch the second half of this game? He's like, are you kidding? It's over. This is
yeah,
over. And it was. I mean, and Jeremiah Smith is, we talked about Cam Scatterbo and impressive college football players. Jeremiah Smith would be wide receiver 1 on pretty much any NFL team today. It is
yeah.
wild.
Yeah, it's kind of unfair. I've said this a couple of times, so I'm stealing from myself. But it's almost unfair to not only him, but the rest of college football that he has to play for 2 more years. And I almost just wonder, it's not going to happen, right? But I'm going to say this anyway. I almost wonder if he's the kind of player that could get the NFL rules changed, could get the draft eligibility rules changed. Because if there was ever a player you said like, all right, put that guy in the NFL, right? Like, would the rest of college football maybe petition to, or the rest of the Big Ten say like after next year, after he wins the Heisman next year,
anymore. We're good. Yeah,
like he's got to be. I haven't looked at any Heisman odds. We talked about him. I know you talked about him on your channel. He's got to be the Heisman favorite right now for next year, without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
They don't even play Oregon next year. Like he's going to put up absurd
numbers. He is so good, and his situational awareness, like football IQ. Did you see the play where he is literally like motioning to his teammates where they need to go for blocks and like signaling, doesn't want a blindside block here, like let's not get this called back.
Yeah.
It is wild to watch him literally coach the other people on the field in real time while he is running up the sidelines. Like he is so fun to watch. He is so impressive. It's so crazy to think that he's 19 years old. Just an embarrassment of riches at wide receiver at Ohio State. Brian Hartline has done such a phenomenal job there. It's honestly crazy to think how this team lost to Michigan. This team that we have watched the last 2 weeks just absolutely decimate really worthy playoff opponents. Oregon was undefeated this regular season, already beat Ohio State once, number 1 seed, and the just demolition that happened today in the Rose Bowl is insane. And Ohio State's got to be the odds-on favorite at this point. I mean, if they continue to play the way that we have seen them play the last two weeks, I can't imagine how they're not the favorite to win it all.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of said that, right? Like if they play like this again, but not really thinking they could play as well as they did against Tennessee, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
know. I I thought a lot of Oregon when they I'm sorry, I thought a lot of Ohio I did think a lot of Oregon too before tonight. But I thought a lot of Ohio State when they beat Tennessee, but it also made me just seriously question Tennessee.
Tennessee, sure, sure.
And
But
so,
when Oregon, like there isn't on paper, there is not a more worthy team in this playoff, right?
yeah,
They're the only team in college football that figured out how to remain undefeated. And in college football, that is such a difficult thing to do. Or Oregon was worthy. So, like, we can have the debate whether or not Tennessee was worthy or they should have made the playoffs or whether or not 12 is too many. But no matter what number we decided was the right number, Oregon was going to be in.
sure. And so their talent level and just how I don't know. It is like mystifying that they were able to do this. Like, and
Yeah.
I as I mean, everybody was good for Ohio State tonight. There was no, there were no weaknesses on
Yeah.
the team. The only weakness
Oh,
was that they
Howard was
had to.
great.
I thought he was great. I think he's been. I mean, through 2 games, he's been the best quarterback in this thing.
Yeah.
It's not even close. Now, we'll see
Yeah.
how things go tomorrow with the fourth game. But there's
Yeah.
not been a quarterback that's even close to played as well
Yeah.
as he has. Quinn Ewers isn't close.
Nope.
Drew Aller's played well, but Riley Leonard's not close. Obviously, none of the teams that lost their quarterback was
Right.
was really great. So yeah, Will Howard. And I mean, you look at who's left. Like, you know, are you confident that Quinn's going to play better than him next game? Are you confident that either Gunner or Riley Leonard is going to play that well? Drew Aller
Hard.
again maybe would be second to me. We'll see how the other two play against each other tomorrow. But Ohio State's not only got the best roster, I think they got the best quarterback left too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their defense though, which as good as the offense was, I think the way their defense played. I mean, Oregon's offense is insane, and they've got a
Mhm.
Heisman candidate leading it.
Yep.
They've got a
More
wide receiver
experience than
group.
anybody else in all of college football.
Yeah, a wide receiver group that I think is probably second best in the country, and they
Yeah.
got nothing done today. Obviously, once they got up 30, yeah, they scored a touchdown or 2 touchdowns once they were down by 34 points. Congratulations. The defense was insanely good today, and how many tackles for losses do they have? How many sacks do they have? How many? I mean, the guys weren't even like he wasn't even close to completing passes. Like the secondary was
Yeah.
phenomenal. They were so good in every aspect.
Yeah.
We talked about Saban's comments. Like, you think they're happy with Ryan Day again? Do you think they're back on the? They
I
got to be back on the
mean,
wagon at this point.
you would think they're back on the Ryan Day train at this moment, and it is. I mean, Saban has to be chuckling to himself, right? And this is the ebbs and flows of college football. This is all fan bases are insane. If you are one of these traditional blue bloods, even wackier, right? That's just kind of the nature of the beast. And for Ohio State, the knock on Ryan Day is Michigan. And it is mind-blowing to watch them the last 2 weeks though, and try to wrap your head around how they lost to Michigan and how he has lost to Michigan. What isn't it, 4 years in a row? I mean,
Yeah,
it
four
is.
to five.
And at that point, you got to think that, okay, it's just they're in their head, but that's a whole separate host of problems. But I would think today, the Ohio State faithful is very pleased that Ryan Day is their head coach.
I mean, yeah, tonight we'll see. We'll see what they do against Texas. I mean, but we talked about this earlier. I think, is Ohio State your pick right now to win it? I mean, yeah, I know earlier you had
I mean,
Georgia.
yeah,
And
I want
I
to
didn't have
see
Ohio State
Georgia
either.
against Notre Dame, but I do. I mean, it is hard to think of anybody being hotter right now than Ohio State is. It's hard to watch them and picture who is going to beat them. I think that Kirby Smart is such a talented coach that I will not ever count him out. And I think that Georgia has every bit the talent on their rosters as Ohio State does. Now, they're playing with Gunner Stockton, a new quarterback who, outside of coming in for part of the SEC championship game, has seen mop up duty, and that's it. And that's a whole, you know, host of issues that come along with this. Really interested. We'll get into it in a minute to see how what has been going on in New Orleans affects the teams playing in this next playoff game. But you've got to think the easy answer is Ohio State right now.
Yeah. And that's not to say that Texas couldn't win in the next round and play a lot better, or Ohio State could kind of come back down from the clouds where they're at,
100%.
or that Gunner couldn't, pull
Texas
something off
is
crazy
incredibly
too.
talented. Georgia is incredibly talented. I Penn State is talented, but I would put them a tick below the rosters of Texas and
Sure.
Ohio State and Georgia, and so those three, any given day, could just flip a switch and be it, right? Because they have the talent for that to happen.
Yeah.
But I do think Ohio State is just playing so well right now.
So, all right, you mentioned we'll talk Penn State here in a second too. But interestingly enough, you were talking about Georgia. Somebody commented this, and I looked it up real quick just to check it. So I appreciate. John said Notre Dame is now a favorite. Isn't that crazy? Like that game
Yeah,
would be happening now, and obviously
yeah,
much more important things in this world. Like I don't mean to gloss over stuff. Obviously,
yeah.
everything that's happened in New Orleans today and other places too, but is absolutely tragic and way more important than any football game. So, I'm not trying to
100%.
minimize any of that. And so certainly thinking of and praying for, people impacted. But it is interesting to me that Notre Dame is now a 1-point favorite. I don't know
Yeah.
how much it matters that a team is a 1-point favorite or a 1-point dog. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's in a neutral site game, so it's a wash, is essentially
but,
what we're saying. I would be
but
interested to
that's
know what
interesting.
caused
That's it.
the late
Yeah.
push.
I wonder why. Like, I wonder why that is true. Because usually stuff isn't going to, again, that game would be happening right now.
Right.
Like we wouldn't even be on here had
Yeah.
the tragic stuff not
The
happened.
terror
And
attack
so
in New Orleans.
why is that switched? Like, does Vegas know something? Does Sharps know? Like what has
Yeah.
kind of moved that a little bit?
Yeah.
Um,
This has gotta
obviously,
be really rough for, obviously, our hearts go out to anybody that was personally affected by what happened on Bourbon Street, but imagine being these 2 teams sequestered in your team hotel. You're essentially on lockdown. Imagine being the parents of these players and
yeah,
you're either there and you're in a different hotel and you can't get in, or you're in that hotel and you are also kind of in lockdown, or you're not even there, right? You're in a different city because you're saving your trip to see your child play in the playoffs for the next game, or whatever the situation is. Like, I just can't even wrap my head around
yeah,
everything that has happened there and the emotions that go through it. I have spent multiple New Year's Eves on Bourbon Street because either my brother or my husband was playing in the Sugar Bowl,
yeah,
and I this whole thing is just so crazy to think about. And I tip my hat to the College Football Playoff Committee and the SEC and just everybody that has had a hand in figuring out, ESPN, how to maneuver around this and figure out a way to keep everybody safe and work with local authorities and stuff. What a nightmare.
yeah. I can't imagine. And again, such a small thing like to worry about or wonder about with much larger things at play.
Oh, for sure.
But
The game is
but
absolutely secondary to everything that's going on there.
But thinking about that and thinking about the game, those players woke up this morning thinking, all right, let's go play. Like you just woke
Mhm,
up like with a different
mhm.
feeling. And I can only imagine what that's like for a college athlete. I remember what it was like when I was in high school. It was game day and you woke up with just a
Yeah,
little bit more excitement, right? Like, and
yeah,
that pales in comparison to a college football playoff game. And then within minutes, you're brought down back to earth. And they
yeah,
probably told them like, hey, this probably isn't happening. Like there's some
yeah,
serious stuff that's going on. And then all day you sit around doing nothing. And then you got to go do it again tomorrow, right? Like
yeah.
you're stiff from sitting in a hotel room. I'm sure they did stuff, got them in the meeting rooms and stuff to,
Yeah, I was gonna say
you know,
generally they have a game room set up and they have stuff,
but
but you have this underlying feeling of dread too. Like
sure.
your bomb squads are searching your hotels to make sure that it's safe for you to remain there. You know that you had family and friends and classmates that traveled
Out
for the
partying.
game that
Yeah,
were on Bourbon Street, and
sure.
you're probably frantically trying to make contact with them to make sure that they're okay. There's a report that one of the injured people on Bourbon Street was a Georgia student. That has been,
Yeah.
reported. It just, the whole thing is terrible. And I don't ever want to paint this in a situation where we think the football game is more important or as important or even on any scale, because it's not at all. But I do think that there is figuring out a way to, whether it moves locations, it moves days, whatever it is, they figure out how to do to not let terrorism win is important too.
Sure.
As long as
Yeah.
everybody is, safe.
Yeah, for sure. You hope it's kind of it's contained or it's done or
Mhm.
whatever. But yeah, shout out to the people that had to figure this stuff out and work on it. The first responders and all, the families impacted and everything. It's a,
Yeah,
it's something we
horrible.
certainly never want to talk about and didn't think we'd be talking about tonight. Cause it just, again, people lost their lives and, we're arguing over football. It does kind of put everything into perspective for sure. So
Yeah. It does. And you watch those videos of, the police running in to, you know, this car accident, these explosions, the things that are going on, and it really does. It puts things into perspective, and we definitely hats off to all of our first responders and everybody involved in trying to keep as many people safe as possible.
For sure. It feels weird to transition back to football, but Penn State with a little bit of an advantage because of that, or maybe a little bit of a disadvantage having to sit around and try and figure out who you're going to play another day. But you do get another day of rest out of that. We were talking about that earlier. Maybe we'll bring it back up in a second. But Penn State beats Boise State, and we talked about this. The game plan was going to be go all in on limiting Ashton Genty, right? You had your choice. You could either kind of let him get his and hope that everybody else didn't beat you, and they absolutely did limit him. Outside of that 26-yard run on the 3rd and 21 draw play where they kind of just fell asleep, he just wasn't, I hate to take away from his great year.
Yeah, no, because honestly, you watch him, he's hard
tough
to take down. But he was their team. And so if you go all in on stopping him, they didn't have a whole lot of weapons outside of that, so I don't think it's a knock on him, right? Like if you double and triple team who you view as the best threat and then they just have no other threats, that's not a knock on the guy that is the threat. That's kind of a knock on everybody else, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't expect like a Mountain West team to have 4 Ashton Gentys, right? Like they could triple team, Jeremiah Smith in the next round, and okay, great, or Will Howard will throw it to somebody else that's a 5-star, and so like in a Boise State type situation, he was going to have to be Superman times 4 to get it done. The play where they end up scoring, I think they hand it off to the fullback. He starts to run out wide, and literally 3 Penn State defenders go with him. And so they were playing 10 on 8, right?
Yeah.
If you math good. Yeah. And so they scored. But he was that's how much attention they were devoting to him was, that guy's running out wide as a decoy. We're still sending 3 guys with him.
Just in case.
Which was insane to see. And obviously SMU scored there. Second game in a row, you talk about this, but second game in a row where Penn State's defense has certainly played bend don't break. I wrote this. 12. Boise State had 12 and 13 play drives, and they came away with no points from those. They had an interception on one, and they had a missed field goal on the other. The interception came after a play got called back. It was a touchdown, but called back on a holding, and then they missed a field goal. Both those in the second half. This game did get close. It was competitive kind of late. Penn State's offense got going enough when it needed to. But second week in a row, I kind of thought, and I was maybe a little hard on Penn State last week because they were, we talk about the weather for the road team. It's still tough to throw the ball, even if you are the home team in 20-degree weather. But a lot of people thought like, oh, well, Penn State's offense will get going here now that they're playing in a dome and it's climate controlled and Drew Aller will be really good. And I didn't think their offense was great again. And again, maybe Boise State and SMU have better defenses than I think. But I'm a little worried for Penn State going forward because I don't think they've been as impressive as they needed to be. Now their defense did shut down Genty again. They devoted 3 or 4 guys to doing that. And so I don't know. I'm not sold on Penn State just yet.
Yeah. And can we talk about how many teams are going to be looking for a new field goal kicker from the playoffs? I feel like there has it's been atrocious. We saw that in this game. We saw it in the Arizona State game. I don't know. The missed field goals killed me. Did you see at the very beginning of the game when Boise State was running out with their flags, the guy that literally eats it, carrying the flag out? Oh my gosh. No. You have one job. You're running out of the tunnel with the team flag, so eyes are all on you, and he literally just eats it into the turf. You're going to have to look it up. It's kind of hilarious. But yeah, Boise State wasn't bad. Their offense is pretty one-dimensional. And so when that is shut down, they're having a hard time scoring points. But I felt like their defense actually played decently well.
Yeah. I thought their defense was fine. The Penn State scored kind of late to get it to 31, but it was 24-14. And those are the two. And that's when Boise State had the 2 at 24-14. That's when Boise State drove all the way down and the touchdown got called back. And I don't think it was a bad call or anything. I don't think it was like it's so obvious. Like I think it could have been let go, but whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, it got called. If that doesn't get called or that hold doesn't happen, I didn't think it impacted the play. I'll say that. now all of a sudden 24 to 21.
Yeah.
And then the very next drive, Boise State goes down and misses a field goal. And then the very next drive, Boise State throws an interception. And so, like, to me, it was just Boise State was doing some good things. Penn State's defense, I don't want to give them too much crap because they certainly play bend don't break. Kind of like we talked about with Texas. They let teams drive, and then when it gets restricted, they do a really good job of stepping up. And I don't credit them a ton for missed field goals, but when you are forcing interceptions, when you are forcing turnovers in the red zone, that the defense is part of that, right? Where it's so compacted.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I do think Penn State's. I will say this: as much as I'm not necessarily sold on Penn State, like if I had to, somebody asked like who's your pick to win it, I mean I'd say Ohio State in this moment. But if you have like your rankings as like Ohio State 1, Texas, Georgia, kind of at that second level. I probably have Notre Dame right next and then Penn State, maybe just a smidge under them. We'll see though. Notre Dame, Penn State, maybe right in that same tier. But the way that Penn State plays with really good defense and a really good rushing attack, I think will keep them in probably every game. That's just, they're not going to play a lot of high scoring games. Like I'm giving them a hard time for scoring 31 points. They still scored 31 points, right? Like that's going to win a lot of games, maybe not against Ohio State, but, they played well enough to win. And again, how much did they need to go all out and show everything they've got? So there's some nuance to it. I don't want to just crap on Penn State. I think the way they play, like if they play, we talked about this when we previewed Notre Dame, Georgia. I think Kirby loves the fact that he's going to be in a running and defense game against Notre Dame. Well, if he wins that, he's going to be in another one, a running and defense type game. And I think Kirby certainly got the advantage there, but I don't think Georgia, if they win tomorrow, I don't think Georgia beats Penn State by 21.
Right.
Like they might win by 10,
but
I don't think that unless Gunner comes out and is just like dropping dimes everywhere and we see something really crazy from their offense. I mean, I think Penn State's going to be in that game against whoever they play. And then they'll probably run into a buzzsaw in the national championship, whoever wins that one. But I feel like they're going to be right in it because of the way they play. And so I'm giving them a hard time. They could very easily not very easily, but they could certainly still make the national championship. I'm not writing them off just yet. We need to figure out what the heck Georgia's going to be with the backup.
Yeah. I mean, and again, we're going to get to see that game as of right now tomorrow at 4:00. And I'm really interested. I need to know more about this Notre Dame team, which I think obviously we'll get the opportunity to see what they're made of because of Georgia, but I really need to see what Gunner's made of. And I really need to see how this team performs when he's their leader for the whole 60 minutes.
And we talked about this, right? Like that's the biggest question.
Yeah.
If he plays well, they're probably going to win. If he doesn't, they're probably, I mean, like it's that simple, right? Like Georgia is still maybe the second best roster in college football, right? I think they're probably slightly behind Ohio State right now, especially considering the quarterback. But I do think that they're not nearly as good as they have been previously. And I don't know that they're good enough to overcompensate for him playing a bad game. Yeah. Georgia 3 years ago probably was, 2 years ago, maybe even last year. I don't know that they're good enough to overcompensate for him just having 2 turnovers or something like that. Now, if Riley Leonard has 2 turnovers, then it evens back out.
Can we talk about the fact that teams with a bye so far are 0-3 in the playoffs?
Well, how much again, maybe the nuance there is that we don't really think
you have a stupid way of coming up with who gets the bias.
Yeah. Like I'll say this. I think Arizona State and Boise State deserve to be in, and that has nothing to do with the way they play.
Sure,
I'm not a big fan.
Doesn't necessarily make sense.
I'm not a big fan of saying like, oh, this team played poorly, they should be left out, right? Because then if you're going to do that for Indiana, then you need to do that for Tennessee. If you're going to do that for SMU, then you need to look at Oregon, right? Like whatever, right? Like just because you play like if Oregon and Ohio State played again right now, I don't think they lose by as much, right? Like I think they played, Ohio State played really well tonight. So all that said, like I think Arizona State and Boise State deserve to be in the playoff. Yeah. I don't understand a situation where you say these are our 9th and 10th best teams. Let's give them the 3 and 4 seeds. Like in what world does that make sense?
Right.
And the NFL kind of does something similar. Somebody brought that up to me on Twitter. The Bucks if they win on Sunday, the Bucks are going to be like 9-5 and they're going to host a team that's got 11 or 12 wins. And so the NFL kind of does something similar. although there is more parity in conferences, winning conferences matters more, but like they're going to host a team
Yeah.
that is got 3 or 4 more wins
Better
than them.
record. Can you
And so
imagine?
that's kind of dumb to me. The more
Yeah.
I think about it, I think it's dumb. Now I'm going to the Bucks game, so I'm happy about it. But like I think that's kind of stupid. I like the way the NBA does it. You win your conference or your division or whatever, and they just rank you 1 through 8 in the NBA and the NHL and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think the way that college is going to fix it.
Yeah. Well,
But
think about like had Oregon State, let's say they intentionally lost the Big Ten championship game, would have
uh,
rearranged how games were a little bit. They potentially would have gotten Clemson and then Arizona State as theirs if,
Penn
seeding
State,
changes
yeah,
if Oregon lost. Yeah.
Oregon.
So,
Sorry, yeah.
but instead, yeah, if Oregon had intentionally lost, but instead Oregon rests for 3 weeks at this point and gets the second place team who, got to cut their teeth against a cupcake in Tennessee week 1, right? Like it's that we've talked about this a lot on the show, and we know that they will change how this goes moving forward because it hasn't worked in practice like they thought it would in theory or whatever. But it is just wild to think that had Oregon lost, they would probably still be in this.
Yeah. No, I mean, for sure. Yeah, I think they would have won their first 2 games. Who they play? SMU and then Boise State. Yeah, it's hard for me to imagine that either one of those teams beat them. And then I think they would still have a really good chance against whoever came out of that side. That Georgia Notre Dame
Would
matchup.
that have even happened though? I thought if they would have changed the rankings some, they potentially could have played Clemson.
Oh,
But either way, so let's say they play
oh
they
yeah. Would
play
they have been
Clemson and
fifth
then
instead of
Arizona. Yeah,
Texas?
they probably would have played Clemson and then Arizona
Yeah.
State.
So they'd be in
And
there.
then
They'd be playing Ohio State now. Like we'd have a
yeah,
dud of a semifinal.
but they would have made it to the semifinals,
Yeah.
had they lost.
I'm glad that didn't happen because I think Texas plays them better.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's about all I got for tonight. You got anything else?
No.
We'll talk about on Sunday. We will come. We'll do we might not go live, but we'll do a quick video on the Georgia game at some point and put that out. And then on Sunday we'll go live. We'll talk about. Oh yeah, we need to talk about Bama losing and stuff. I got a lot of hot takes on that one.
Got a lot of hot takes on that.
Yeah.
Of course you do.
I need. Is it tomorrow or is it the day after? I need Lane to take an L because all the teams that were fighting to get in so far, Alabama, South Carolina, Miami, all the teams that were right there lost. So I need Lane, and Lane runs his mouth more. Like you didn't see DeBoer talking, you didn't see Mario talking, or Shane Beamer talking. Like Lane's been tweeting a lot. So I need Duke to do us a solid here. I have no confidence they will because it's Duke, but I don't know. I didn't think Michigan would win either. So Sunday we'll talk about that. We will be live on Sunday.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll talk about this Georgia game when it happens. Hopefully it happens tomorrow at 4:00, but obviously that's kind of a fluid situation. But as soon as it does happen, we'll do a video. And then of course we'll go live and TJ will give you every opportunity to air your grievances.
It's Festivus all over again.
It is. It absolutely is. All right, guys, we appreciate you tuning in. Do us a favor. Please, please, please hit the subscribe button so that, we can see your support. It really helps us grow the channel. We appreciate you guys for being here, whether you're watching this live or you're going to watch it later on on a replay. But we appreciate you joining us and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.